In the busy city of Enugu, there lived Mama Ifeanyi, a strong and kind widow who gave everything she had to raise her only son, Chike. Life was never easy for her. Every morning before sunrise, she carried baskets of oranges, mangoes, and groundnuts to the market. Under the hot sun and through heavy rains, she sat by the roadside, smiling at customers, bargaining with strangers, and saving every little coin she could. Many nights she went to bed hungry, but she made sure Chike always had food on his plate. When school fees were due, she would sell even her best clothes or borrow money, just so her son's education would not stop. As a child, Chike loved his mother deeply. He would wait for her at the market, holding her hand proudly as they walked home. But time changed everything. After years of her sacrifice, Chike became a successful banker, wearing fine suits and living in the wealthier parts of town. Slowly, he began to see his mother differently. Her calloused hands, her market-woman accent, her simple wrapper and slippers. Everything about her reminded him of the poverty he wanted to forget. Though Mama Ifeanyi still carried the same love in her heart, Chike no longer introduced her with pride. He avoided bringing his friends to her small home. When neighbors asked about his mother, he would only smile quickly and change the topic. Mama Ifeanyi felt the distance growing, but she said nothing. She only prayed quietly at night, hoping her son would one day remember the woman who gave him everything. When Chike got his new job at the bank, life changed quickly. He bought a car, moved into a wealthy neighborhood, and started living the kind of life Mama Ifeanyi had always prayed for him to live. But with every new step up the ladder, he seemed to take one step further away from his mother. Weeks would pass without a single visit. When he finally came around, it was often in a rush, as if he was only ticking a box. Whenever Mama Ifeanyi asked, "My son, when will you come and eat with me again?" he would smile politely and say, "Mama, I'm busy with work. You know city life." She would nod, forcing a smile, though her heart sank each time. What hurt her most was not just the distance, but the way he treated her when they went out together. Chike no longer wanted to be seen walking beside her in public. If they were on the street, he would walk ahead, pretending not to notice when neighbors greeted her. And when she asked to visit his big house in the new neighborhood, he gave excuses. "Mama, you'll be more comfortable here in your place. My house is too noisy." To his friends and colleagues, Chike told a different story. Whenever someone asked about his mother, he laughed it off, saying, My mama. She loves the village life. She doesn't enjoy the city at all." His words cut deep, for she never said such a thing. She had longed to be part of his new world, to sit proudly beside him, to see him shine. Still, Mama Ifeanyi swallowed her pain. She never argued, never shouted. At night, she sat by her small lamp, whispering prayers. "God, soften my son's heart. Don't let him forget where he came from." Deep down, she believed love would bring him back, even though every passing day felt colder than the one before. One day, Chike decided to host a grand dinner at his new home. It was to be a night of glamour, filled with politicians, business leaders, and his wealthy colleagues. The house was decorated with lights, the tables covered with sparkling glassware and expensive dishes. For Chike, it was more than just a dinner. It was a chance to show the world how far he had come. When the invitation reached Mama Ifeanyi, her heart leapt with joy. She had waited so long for a moment like this, to finally be by her son's side, to see him celebrate his success openly. She wanted nothing more than to make him proud. That evening, she wore the Ankara dress she had sewn with her own hands, a dress stitched carefully with love and hope. Though simple compared to the gowns of the rich, she felt beautiful in it. She carried a small package of roasted groundnuts in her handbag, a humble gift for her son, just like she used to give him when he was a boy coming back from school. On her way to his house, her eyes sparkled with excitement. She imagined him welcoming her with open arms, introducing her to his friends, saying proudly, "This is my mother, the woman who made me who I am today." She rehearsed in her heart how she would smile, how she would greet his guests politely, how she would sit beside him at the grand table. When she entered the magnificent house, her breath caught. The chandeliers sparkled above, the smell of expensive food filled the air, and people in fine clothes laughed as soft music played. She clutched her small gift tightly, walking carefully so she wouldn't stumble. Some eyes turned toward her, curious, but she didn't mind. In her heart, she was already glowing, thinking, today my son will see me with pride. She looked around for Chaik, her face glowing with anticipation. Her steps quickened, her smile wide, her heart whispering, this is my moment. At last I will sit beside my son, not as a poor market woman, but as his honored mother. The dinner was in full swing when Mama Ifyinanya finally spotted her son seated at the grand table, surrounded by important guests. Her heart filled with pride. She walked slowly toward him, smiling, holding her little bag close to her chest. In her mind she could already hear him say, "Mama, come sit beside me." She reached the table, her eyes shining, and gently touched the chair next to him. But before she could sit, Chaik quickly placed his hand on hers. His face tightened as he whispered sharply, "Mama, not here. Please sit at the back. This table is for special guests." The words cut through her like a knife. The room grew silent. The clinking of glasses stopped. A few guests turned their heads, surprised. Others bent their faces toward each other and whispered. A soft laugh slipped from one corner of the table, and another followed. Mama Ifyinanya froze, her smile fading. She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had carried baskets of fruit for years, the same hands that had fed and clothed this very son who now pushed her aside. She wanted to say something, but no words came. Her throat felt heavy, her eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Slowly she nodded, forcing a weak smile to cover her pain. "It's all right, my son," she whispered, though her voice trembled. She picked up her little gift of roasted groundnuts and walked quietly toward a corner of the hall. She sat alone on a small chair, clutching the bag tightly, as if it was the only thing keeping her from breaking down. The laughter at the main table continued, but it no longer sounded like music to her ears. It sounded like sharp stones thrown at her heart. She looked around the shining hall, the food, the lights, the laughter, and wondered how her years of sacrifice could lead to this moment of shame. She turned her face away, hiding the tears that finally slipped down her cheeks. In her silence she prayed, "God, give me strength. Even if my son is ashamed of me, let me not be ashamed of myself." The silence in the room grew heavier after Mama Ifyinanya moved to the corner. Guests avoided each other's eyes, pretending to eat, but the shame in the air was thick. Just then, a chair scraped loudly against the floor. Chief Oladipo, one of the most respected men in the city, slowly rose to his feet. All eyes turned to him. He looked straight at Chaik, his face calm but his voice firm. "Young man," he said, his words echoing through the hall, "do you know who you just pushed aside?" The room went still. Even the laughter that had lingered faded. Chaik shifted uncomfortably in his seat, unable to meet the chief's eyes. Chief Oladipo continued, his voice carrying weight. "I have seen that woman before. Many years ago, I watched her walk miles under the burning sun, carrying baskets of fruit on her head. She was not selling for herself, she was selling for you. I saw her bargain with customers, sometimes taking less money, just so she could buy your books and pay your fees." He paused, turning to look at Mama Ifyinanya, who sat quietly in the corner, her head bowed. Then he turned back to the guests. "Tell me, which of us here has made such sacrifices? Which of us has given so much with empty hands? You call yourselves special guests. No, the true special guest here tonight is that woman. Without her sweat and tears, this young man would not be sitting among you in his fine suit." His words struck the room like thunder. Some guests gasped softly, others looked down in shame. Murmurs spread across the table. Mama Ifyinanya lifted her head slightly, tears shining in her eyes, but this time they were not tears of pain, they were tears of being seen. Chief Oladipo raised his hand toward her. "If anyone deserves the seat of honor tonight, it is Mama Ifyinanya. She is the mother who gave her life for her child. That, my friends, is worth more than money, titles, or power." The hall was silent, but the silence now carried respect. Every word had landed, every heart was moved. Chaik's face, burned as the truth, echoed in his ears. For a moment, the room stayed silent after Chief Oladipo's words. Then slowly one guest began clapping. Another followed, And soon the hall filled with the sound of hands coming together, loud and firm. The applause wasn't for Chaik or his expensive dinner. It was for Mama Ifyinanya. A woman at the table stood up and said sharply, "A man who dishonors his mother dishonors himself." Her words struck like fire, and many nodded in agreement. Another guest added, "All this wealth means nothing if you forget the one who built you with her sacrifice." The truth spread through the room like a wave. One by one, people began rising from the main table. They walked past Chaik, their faces filled with disappointment, and went toward the corner where Mama Ifyinanya sat quietly, holding her little gift of roasted groundnuts. A prominent politician pulled out a chair beside her and said warmly, "Mama, may I sit with you?" Soon others joined, surrounding her with respect. The corner of the room, once dim and lonely, suddenly became the brightest place in the hall. Mama Ifyinanya looked around in disbelief. Her heart trembled as she saw men and women in fine clothes choosing her company over the grand table. For the first time in years, she felt the honor she had longed for, not because of riches, but because her worth was finally recognized. Meanwhile, Chaik sat frozen at the head table, his face burning with shame. The chair beside him, which he had guarded so carefully, was now empty. The laughter of his guests had vanished. Their admiration had shifted away from him. He felt smaller than ever, like a child caught in the middle of wrongdoing. The sound of voices praising his mother filled the air. "Mama, you are the true guest of honor. Your sacrifice is your crown. Without you, this gathering would not even exist." Each word pierced Chaik's heart, reminding him of the truth he had tried to bury. The grand table no longer mattered. The real feast was happening in the corner, around the woman he had once pushed aside. And in that moment, the room had chosen its hero. It was not Chaik the banker, but Mama Ifyinanya, the mother who gave everything. As more guests gathered around Mama Ifyinanya, the hall grew quiet again. All eyes turned once more to Chief Oladipo, who still stood tall in the middle of the room. His voice was steady, yet filled with emotion. "I must tell you all something I have kept in my heart for many years," he began. He pointed gently toward Mama Ifyinanya. "That woman sitting there, I have always admired her. I watched her in the market many times. When others cheated their customers, she refused. When others grew bitter over hardship, she kept her smile. She walked in the hot sun, carrying fruits on her head, yet never once did she complain. Instead, she would say, 'As long as my son goes to school, I am rich.'" The guests listened closely, their faces softening with respect. Chief Oladipo's words poured out like truth long overdue. "Do you know what true wealth is?" he asked, his voice rising. "It is not in these plates of food or in your fine clothes. True wealth is sacrifice. True wealth is integrity. And that woman, this mama right here, she is wealth itself. Her character is worth more than gold." The room erupted in applause again, but this time it was stronger, louder, like thunder rolling through the hall. Some guests even wiped their own tears, touched by the power of his words. Mama Ifyinanya sat trembling, her hands shaking as she tried to hold back her emotions. But the tears came freely, rolling down her cheeks. Not tears of shame this time, but tears of relief and gratitude. For years she had been overlooked, treated as though her sacrifices were ordinary, even invisible. But now, in front of the most powerful people in the city, she was seen for who she truly was. She covered her face with her wrapper for a moment, whispering softly, "Thank you, God." At last, when she lowered her hands, her eyes glistened with a dignity that no amount of wealth could buy. In that hall, surrounded by applause and respect, Mama Ifyinanya was no longer just a market woman or a forgotten mother. She was a queen crowned not with jewels, but with honor. And at last, the world knew her worth. That night, after the last guest had left and the music had faded, Chaik sat alone in his grand dining hall. The plates were empty, the laughter was gone, but the weight of shame still hung heavy in the air. He leaned back in his chair, covering his face with both hands. The words of Chief Oladipo echoed in his mind. "The true special guest here is your mother." Each time he replayed it, his heart sank deeper. Memories began to flood his mind, memories he had tried so hard to bury. He remembered being a small boy, waking up to the sound of his mother coughing in the cold morning, yet still tying her wrapper to head to the market. He remembered how she would often place the last piece of meat on his plate, pretending she wasn't hungry. He remembered the nights when she came home barefoot, her slippers worn out from walking miles just to buy him books for school. Tears burned his eyes as he thought about the promises he once made as a child. He had told her, "Mama, when I grow up, I'll take care of you. I'll buy you fine clothes. I'll make sure you never suffer again." But now, sitting in his mansion, he realized the bitter truth. He had become the very man his mother had always warned him about, proud, cold, and ungrateful. The image of her sitting quietly in the corner of his own house, clutching a bag of roasted groundnuts while others honored her, haunted him. That was supposed to be his role, to honor her, to lift her up, to make her feel like the queen she truly was. Instead, he had been the one to break her heart. Chaik buried his face in his hands and wept for the first time in years. His wealth, his big house, his fine suit, all of it felt empty now. None of it could erase the pain he had caused his mother. He whispered into the silence, "Mama, I failed you. I forgot who I am because I forgot who you are." And in that moment, guilt turned into a promise. He knew he had to make things right, no matter what it took. Few days later, Chaik made a decision that surprised everyone. He sent out invitations for another dinner, this time even bigger than the first. But unlike before, the gathering was not to show off his wealth or his connections. It was to make things right. When the evening came, the hall was filled again with important guests, but the atmosphere was different. Chaik stood at the entrance himself, waiting, and when Mama Ifyunanya arrived in her simple wrapper, he rushed forward, bowed his head, and held her hands tightly. The guests watched in silence as he led her inside, not to the corner, not to the back, but straight to the head table. When everyone was seated, Chaik rose and cleared his throat. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Ladies and gentlemen, the last time many of you gathered here, I made a mistake I will regret for the rest of my life. I dishonored the very woman who gave me life. Tonight I want to set things right." He turned toward his mother, his eyes filled with tears. "This is my mother, Mama Ifyunanya. She is the reason I stand here today. Every coin she earned went into my schooling. Every sacrifice she made built the man I am. Without her, I am nothing." The hall broke into applause, louder and warmer than before. Chaik gently guided his mother to sit at the center of the table, placing her in the seat of honor. Then, before everyone, he knelt beside her and said, "Mama, please forgive me. Bless me, so I may never forget who I am again." Mama Ifyunanya's eyes glistened as she placed her hands on her son's head. She whispered softly, "I forgive you, my child." Then she added in her calm and gentle voice, "But remember, respect is not for the world to see. It begins in the heart, when no one is watching." The words sank deep into Chaik's soul. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. The guests clapped again, many moved to tears themselves. That night, Mama Ifyunanya finally received her crown, not made of gold or jewels, but made of honor, love, and truth. The story of Mama Ifyunanya spread quickly across Enugu, carried from one mouth to another like wildfire. People talked about it in offices, in buses, in schools, and in the markets. The scandal of the first dinner and the powerful redemption of the second became the city's greatest lesson. Newspapers wrote about it with bold headlines. "Banker's mother crowned with honor," and "True wealth is a mother's sacrifice." In the markets, women sang her name with pride. They called her their champion, their sister, their queen. They told customers, "Ifyunanya is proof that a mother's sweat never goes in vain." Young men and women repeated the story on social media, reminding one another never to forget their parents, no matter how high they rose in life. For many, she became a symbol of dignity, proof that honor does not come from riches, but from character and sacrifice. Chaik too changed. He visited his mother often, walking proudly beside her in public. No longer ashamed, he introduced her to everyone with joy. "This is my mother, the greatest woman I know," he would say. And each time, Mama Ifyunanya's heart swelled with quiet gratitude. At night, when she sat alone in her small home, she whispered softly to herself, "They thought I was nothing, but my worth fed a generation." She smiled through her tears, knowing that her story had planted seeds of respect in many hearts. And though she lived simply without riches or gold, she had gained something greater, honor that would outlive her.